weight loss could have been a general health issue. And any one of those indicators alone wouldn't have been a concern. But when I put them all together, there was a pattern. Priya seemed to be struggling. I needed to check in with her.
From time to time, a team member may show behaviours such as poor timekeeping, taking lots of personal calls, missing deadlines, or losing weight. Any one of these behaviours alone wouldn't necessarily mean there are mental health concerns. However, when the person shows a combination of these behaviours over time, this may indicate signs of mental ill health. This is when you need to take action as a manager and start a conversation.
I know you always do your best. If there's anything I can help you with, let me know.
Thanks. I will.
Priya, do you have the report ready?
Not yet.
How far have you got? Because Shannon needs to review before it goes out.
John.
We absolutely can't miss that deadline.
I haven't done it. I can't do it. I can't do any of it anymore.
Marcus can't make Priya share her situation, but backing off completely from the situation wasn't the right decision. Priya's situation may continue to escalate, and she won't receive the support she needs to improve her mental health and well-being. Return to the question and consider another option that will help him begin the conversation with her.
The video you just watched is part of our latest training deployed globally at GSK, where we're using online simulations to help train managers so they feel more comfortable having conversations around mental health in the workplace. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bhargav Chandrashekar, and I'm an occupational health physician at the R&D Hub in Philadelphia. Occupational health, or occupational medicine, is a specialty that focuses on how to keep people safe at work. This includes protecting employees from biological, chemical, and physical hazards, but also involves creating a workplace that supports health and well-being. The topic for this session is how to navigate the growing marketplace of mental health solutions. The market is being bombarded with applications, wearables, trainers, personnel. And there's no universally accepted guideline to help you sort through these options. And government regulation oversight has failed to keep up. As employers, you might be wondering, what kind of applications are out there? What kind of questions should I be asking a potential vendor? And what resources are there to help me get started? By the end of this session, I hope to simplify this for you. Let's split it up into 3 steps. The first step being setting up a culture of health and molding it to fit the needs of your employees. The second step is implementing or expanding a counseling or EAP service. And finally, looking to mobile applications or wearables to bring it all together. Let's start with assessing the existing culture in your organization. Is it difficult to have conversations around mental health in your company? Or is it one where health and well-being is already a core part of your strategy? Think about the obstacles that you've experienced or run into that brought you to TCH in the first place. I'd like to take the next few slides to show you how we create a culture of health at GSK. As we've heard today multiple times, it starts with engaging senior leaders and creating the value proposition. When leaders understand their responsibility and they see the value in health and well-being, both on the human side and the performance side, this all becomes that much easier. Everyone at GSK is focused on our 3 long-term priorities: innovation, performance, and trust. Trust is key for the patients we serve and in our role as a modern employer. When we have the flexibility to manage our lives, we all can thrive and do great things at work and at home. It's all about creating a space where we can be ourselves, feel good, and keep growing. Creating that space in a global company does have its challenges. We have a diverse population in different sectors with different cultural expectations. This can especially create some complexities with regards to mental health. So we don't take a one-size-fits-all approach, and really we use different platforms to engage and spread the awareness across the company. This includes coordinating local activities and events, as well as using our internal social media, where we're building a network of health and well-being champions, like we've heard, to share, support, and drive these conversations. So that way, whatever health and well-being topic we're trying to push out into the company, it shows up in those meetings across the business. As we've seen in other sessions today, think about how you can create that network, because we found it to be extremely useful. And what kinds of resources could you make available for them to help these champions succeed? In addition to supporting a multicultural workforce, we also support flexible working. This means using technology to expand access to health and well-being resources, so they're accessible by employees on site, on the go, or at home. They include mindfulness sessions, energy and resilience programs, health and well-being microlearnings, and much more. Even in a workplace with a great culture of health, mental health problems will inevitably arise. Many managers and coworkers just don't feel comfortable discussing this for a variety of reasons, right? Some say it's just not part of my job. They should come here ready to work. Others say it's too personal, I'd rather just not get involved. And the ones that want to help, they just don't know where to get started. So how can we use technology and give resources for these employees that want to help and make it an expectation that everybody's responsible to lean in? And ideally give them a space to practice before they face it in the workplace. So we've conducted an extensive company-wide campaign in the past year around decreasing the stigma and increasing awareness. This has included powerful social media posts from employees across the organization talking about their experiences, as well as renowned speakers discussing their difficult experiences and how they've successfully found help. We've also created a training module that focuses on topics like spotting changes in your team's behavior and how to have a difficult conversation. Additionally, like the video you saw with Priya in the beginning, we've created an interactive, safe training space so employees can make different options and see the repercussions of their actions play out. So they get to learn what might have been a better thing to say or a better thing to do when they have an employee that's struggling in the workplace. So far, we've discussed the importance of creating a culture of health, examples of resources, and using technology to expand that access. But what about employees that they don't want to get their coworker involved, they don't want to get their manager involved? What kind of resource could you give them so they can start that conversation? For those employees, employee assistance programs or counseling services is a great start. It's been around for 30 years, so I'm hoping a lot of you already have one in your organization. If you have one, at the minimum, you want to have a 24/7, 365 phone line access that employees can use when they need the help. If you're looking to expand, you can create online access to a counselor or even bring counselors on site to deliver short-term therapy. A significant benefit of having an EAP service is that it gives people the permission to access care and to start the conversation at work. And so when we think back to that culture of health, you're making it a really visible part when people say, I can access care right as part of my job. To get a little bit more insight, I spoke to the 2 counselors we have at our major US hubs. So they have over 50 years of counseling experience, and this is what Beth and Jim had to say. In addition to what's already been mentioned, they recommend, or they emphasize, that the counselor needs to have an awareness and appreciation for your company's mission, vision, values, and organizational dynamics. They need to feel comfortable speaking with a variety of employees, managers, supervisors, executives. These days, multicultural diversity training is incredibly important, especially with the nuances of how mental health is perceived and treated in different cultures. They need to have excellent conflict resolution skills, and if you're willing to invest and bring counselors on site, when an employee needs to be referred out for specialist services, that can become that much easier of a seamless transition because they're already aware of local resources. Jim especially recommended the CEAP certification through the EAPA. I hope a lot of you already know of this organization. It's an international organization that also has a chapter in the UK. So companies should look for a person that holds this designation in addition to a master's or doctorate degree in behavioral health. Some EAP services also come with their own mobile application that may include general well-being resources, as well as a way to speak with a counselor right through the application. So technology has opened up a new frontier in mental health support and data collection. So mobile devices like smartphones and tablets have given the public, doctors, and researchers new ways to access care, monitor progress, and just increase their understanding of mental well-being. There's a lot of applications out there, over 3 million, in fact, in the marketplace, and more are being created each and every day. That means a lot of competition for your attention in the very limited space on your phone screen. So even though mental health applications make up a tiny sliver of the entire marketplace, there's still over 15,000 mental health type applications. But only less than 15% of those have proper evidence backing up their claims. So if you're trying to get started on this, where's a trusted starting point for mobile mental health, mobile mental care? So it can be simple yet effective, right? Recently there's a new service offered in the UK for anyone with the ability to send a text message to contact a crisis center. So for a company who's trying to safely introduce their employees to mobile mental health care, this is a great way to get them started. But what about if you're looking for a full separate mobile application? When you think about the different kinds of applications, it's helpful to put them into a couple groups. So let's start with skill training. These feel more like games than the other ones. They help users with coping or thinking skills. Perhaps you'd watch an educational video about anxiety management and then be presented with some strategies you can try. And then finally a scoreboard to check how often you practice those strategies in the day. Then you have illness management. And you want to think about this as supported care where another human being is involved. For example, you might be interacting with a peer group of other people that are also struggling, or a trusted healthcare provider who will log into the application and give you specialized resources to help you. Researchers are still trying to figure out exactly how much human interaction does this category of applications need for them to be effective. And finally, you have symptom tracking. And this is the cutting edge stuff where applications are trying to use the sensors that already exist in your phone, right? Your GPS, your microphone. So they want to be able to track your behavior patterns. How many phone calls are you making? How many text messages are you sending? On your phone calls, how does your vocal tone? How's your speed? To get an idea of your user's real-time state of mind. So if there's any kind of deviation, one day they hope to be able to predict a mood episode before it even occurs. And ideally, alert your caregivers and other resources so they can intervene. So what would be some of the reasons an employee might consider even using mobile mental health, an app, It's convenient, right? So 24/7, 365, she can access this in the middle of the night at home, maybe on the bus, on the way to work. She can stay anonymous. She doesn't have to involve anybody else until she's ready. From a cost perspective, a lot of the applications are free or much cheaper than an in-person counselor. From an interest perspective, a lot of these feel like games like we discussed. So keeping that engagement and continued therapy is a lot easier than making appointments. And for those employees that already are seeing a counselor, mobile applications can be used to extend that treatment option for additional monitoring and support. So what's the next step? Each one of you in this audience have a different set of needs for your organization, so we can't go through 10,000 or 15,000 apps today. But experts agree on a recent framework released by the American Psychiatric Association that I'd like to share with you today. I've adapted it slightly to be a bit more comprehensive, and it's not complicated. You just have to remember 5 words, so the next time you see an app, you can start thinking about these concepts and see whether this is the right thing for you. Let's start with the basics, information. Who made the application and who is it intended for? So who made it? It should be easy to find out about their credentials, their experience in this space. Who's it intended for? Is this an application that wakes you up in the morning and says, are you happy, are you sad? Or is it intended for those that have already been diagnosed by a doctor? Is it free? Is it something you just download and then once you start playing around with it, you see the in-app purchases that we've all experienced with other applications that makes you just want to delete it and move on? And here you also want to make sure the application was updated within the last 180 days. You can ask the next question, why was it updated? Was it because of some security glitch they found, or was it because they were adding new services? This is a big thing, right, in mobile apps. Is it safe? Here what you want to look for is there a privacy policy that's easily accessible by you as the employer and the employee, and is it easy to understand? Your employees may want to opt out of data collection, so does the application provide that? What kind of data is collected? How long is it stored for? Is it stored on your phone? Is it stored on a server, on a cloud somewhere? Is it encrypted? A lot of vendors won't expect you to ask these types of questions, so make them think a little bit as part of the demo or the pitch. Another big question, we talked about how such a few number of applications are evidence-based or have evidence backing them up. So is the treatment modality of the application is fundamentally based on something like cognitive behavioral therapy that's well-researched, well-documented, evidence-based? Or is it something that sounds really flashy and it's nice and you just have flags going off that it doesn't sound like it's going to work? This one's hard, right? How is the user experience? Is it easy? You don't want to just trust the number of downloads here. So you want to ask them, tell me about your monthly active users. Tell me about your daily active users. When they say, oh, we have high engagement, high touch points, ask them, what does engagement mean to you? What does active use mean to you? What is a touch point? God, each one has a different definition of that. Simpler questions. Is it compatible on Android and iPhone? How much space does it take up on the phone? Is it a battery drain? These are all the experiences that a user has that will delete the app way after you've spent a boatload of money in putting it on everybody's phone. And the most important thing, does it need to connect to the internet? So many apps these days have to connect to the internet. So if you're in a godforsaken part of the building and you don't get internet access, it's not going to work. And data. Here you want to know how easy is it to access actionable data from the application. From the user's perspective, if I see red flags and while I'm using it, can I securely share it with my doctor or my counselor to continue that conversation? If you're the employer, how are you going to be convinced that the employees that are using this are getting the help that they need? So we've discussed the framework. You all are probably wondering, okay, there must be a top 10 list somewhere that I could probably Yelp or Google. So there's no consensus list that is really backed by the experts just because of the speed of this industry, and any top 10 list I give you today will probably be useless by the time you leave. There are a couple organizations, though, that are trying to help review this in an evidence-based and transparent manner. And one of them is ORCA, or the Organization for the Review of Care and Health Applications. So they don't just do mental health, they do a variety of medical education and health education topics. So I've listed a couple of the mental health topics that they've reviewed applications for. Another one is Cyber Guide, which is a nonprofit run by certified mental health professionals that's also trying to help users navigate this space. So depending on what you're trying to address in your organization, that's a big question you have to really nail down. There's a variety of categories that you can use to filter the results, right? So you can pick multiple search terms such as stress and anxiety plus gratitude to get an application that hits both of those markers. This is a preview of the service. As you can see, they've been able to review about 172 out of the large number of apps that exist out there. And they score them in three main categories: credibility, user experience, and transparency. And you can also access an expert review for some of them, depending on the application. This is the criteria that they've used, and you can probably see through, this is the criteria for Cyber Guide and a lot of the other similar organizations. It has a lot of similarities to the prior framework we discussed through the American Psychiatric Association. So when you think about this, it boils down to those 5 core principles, right? So introduction, safety, evidence, engagement, and data. This was a recent study that came out comparing the effectiveness of these applications. And so the good news is there's a lot of experts out there that are reviewing this. The bad news is they all can't agree. So consider all of you, experts pretty much now, because they're all using very subjective ways of assessing these applications. And that just means for you as employers to go back to that framework and just take these comments by CyberGuide or Orca or Mind Tools as just another data point, because no app or wearable just will ever know your employees as well as you do. So empower yourself with the information and take all this as just additional information for you to make that decision. I'll briefly touch on wearables. There's even fewer wearables and applications and even less guidance on what's appropriate for the corporate setting. One of the products I came across was Muse, which uses nature sounds and brain activity to moderate your mood. So there's one there. And another one is Touch Points for Calm, which uses a proprietary neuroscience technology. I found it unusual they didn't have a watch as part of the watch, but it uses micro vibrations to help you feel calm when you're, again, feeling anxious or stressed out. And another one is People Keeper, which is an application that pairs with your smartwatch that helps you record how people make you feel throughout the day. So if you need data to back up why you want to cut out that person, you can print this off and say, you're really stressing me out. So these types of products are nice to have, but really I think for the audience here, for what we're trying to achieve in the early stages of mental health strategy, I really recommend starting with that culture of health. Make sure you've got that strong. Get a counseling service, expand it, get the resources that are evidence-based into your organization before you consider some of these kinds of solutions. When you have your next meeting with your leadership, right, after you leave from a full day of great information at TCH, think about how it's going to go. And how are you going to make progress in decreasing the stigma and increasing the awareness and access to care for employees in your organization? Develop a plan to deliver different kinds of mental health resources and use technology as that backbone to increase your access across the organization. Just keep it simple. Really, that's what your employees want. Although there's not a single mobile application wearable that I can endorse as an all-in-one solution today, allow technology to be an extension of the human connection for something as complicated as mental health. We're all really unique, and as a physician, I would never expect everybody here to take one pill to cure all their problems, right? So we can't expect one mobile app to cure all the mental health problems that are out there. So be patient, develop that culture, actively listen to your employees, and engage all of them in this important journey. Thank you.
Come and take a seat, and we'll take some of your questions if they've come up. Keep submitting them as we go. While we are waiting for them to come up, a question from me. You hear people talking a lot about the fact that having too much choice now is overwhelming in itself. Oh, you don't have a mic?
Yeah.
Oh, do we have a mic? Oh, should we do it standing over here?
Sure, yeah.
Come on. Bit more formal. People talking about being overwhelmed by choice. So we talked about there being thousands of mobile mental health and well-being apps available. Isn't that part of the problem in itself? And also this idea that we are constantly tracking, whether it be sleep, our diet, how many steps we're taking every day, can also add to that sense of feeling overwhelmed.
I think it goes back to what is the organization trying to solve. If you're trying to just have somebody track their mood, there are really good applications that just do that. It's when you try to have one application do everything, so signpost all my resources, make somebody happy by the end of the month so I can push them 110% at work and I won't hear a peep. So if you try to keep it simple, I think the choice should get limited drastically. And technology is well poised to make this transformation. It's just, regulation, science, and design have not all sort of come together to say this is the best way to do it.
I suppose that framework helps as well,
yeah,
in terms of what you're looking for. Okay, the questions have popped up. Let me come to this side. How do you get over the gimmick feel that some of these apps have? Employees may think you're introducing apps for free to tick a box. Good point.
Yeah. Again, it comes back to why you're putting an application in, right? If you wanted to, so for GSK, we're a global company, 100,000 employees. It needs to be in 27 languages, has to connect with our HRA, it has to seamlessly work with our EAP. So the way we're thinking about it is more than a tick-a-box exercise, right? An app can be pretty, it can be engaging, it can look gorgeous, it can work seamlessly, but the vendor, when you talk to them and beyond that demo, just ask them these types of questions and see if they can hold their own. And then it'll move past that gimmicky feel and past that checkbox exercise, because if you're going to get answers to that framework, you'll know that it's going to deliver value even if it didn't look pretty. So I would, again, go back to that framework and really ask the tough questions, because that's when the truth really comes out for whether this is the right thing for your organization.
Next, how do you incentivize employees to use apps or wearables or well-being assessments more naturally rather than it feeling like a checkbox exercise?
So this is a big thing in the US, just because of the legality of it, where you can give money. And in the US, we're a large self-insured employer, right? So we bear the cost of medical expenditures on both the personal medical and workers' compensation as well. So I think the old days of using money is sort of past. People just, it's very temporary. So I think we've heard this a lot throughout the day, is when you go back to that culture and a senior leader or manager says, do you guys want to just do this as a walking meeting? Or you want to do something different that hasn't been done? We've been sitting all day and let's walk around the site and just do that differently. Then you don't need to pay somebody 10 pounds or 20 pounds to go take a walk, and then we'll give you a sticker for it. So I think just going about your day, and you don't have to change anything fundamentally different, but having senior leaders and your managers do one thing differently, or before a meeting they just talk about how our week was, beyond something besides work. And just doing that for 5 minutes can have a much bigger impact than these money sort of exercises or these incentives that they used to work, but I think people are just smartened up, and it's not enough. It's not enough to get people moving or to use an application, certainly.
What would you advise smaller businesses when it comes to raising awareness in mental health, who perhaps don't have money to implement an app if it costs
Sure.
money?
So that's where the resource, the Shout, and there's a lot of stuff through the NHS, and certainly I would touch base with local EAP professionals to learn more about what's available in your local community. I don't think you need to spend a lot of money to do this. I think you just need to show you care, and I think that's what we're learning today. And certainly that's my point. You don't need to spend a lot of money to make progress in your organization. So reach out to your local, here especially, you guys have so many resources, wonderful resources here with your hospitals and counselors, so take advantage of it.
How can you ensure that companies don't just use apps as the main way of dealing with mental health issues instead of signposting and funding counselling?
I just think nobody's going to use it. They're going to, they'll use it for a little bit, and then if they just see that, you just pushed out an application and just dusted your hands and you're done with it, it's just not going to work. You're going to spend a lot of money, but it's not going to work. And that's why I think EAP is such a great resource, especially, and this was mentioned earlier, that sometimes EAP doesn't follow through the whole way, and people who have used EAP service sometimes feel the ball was dropped and they don't finish the counseling. And EAP was designed to connect people to additional care. It's supposed to be short-term therapy at site, generally 3 to 8 sessions, at least in the US. So that's what I would recommend, really sticking to EAP services and bringing it together.
This speaks to my previous point. Does tracking our well-being online distract us from having meaningful human interaction? Should we not be reducing our screen time?
Questions are coming fast. Yeah, I would agree, and that's why my final comment was any application you bring on should extend that human interaction, right? So after you start swiping right, left, picking a bunch of checkboxes, et cetera, a human should be at the end of it, because otherwise you're absolutely right. We just spend it's just another distraction on your phone, another Candy Crush, and you're really people are losing the ability to just have conversations with people and not talk about work and just to listen. You don't have to do anything crazy, just listen to others and just show that you care. So that would be what
You'll be relieved to know we've got just over a minute left.
Okay, great.
As a global organisation, do you find that in some cultures people are more likely to use a chatbot or online resource rather than pick up the phone and talk?
Rather than cultures, I think it's ages.
Generations,
yeah, that's come up. A lot of people want to text, and that's really picked up.
Terrified. Younger people are terrified of having phone calls.
Yeah, or talking to someone. So
massive generalisation.
The chatbot AI space has really picked up. I'd be nervous about any application that just uses a chatbot, really, to, let alone in medicine that's pretty straightforward, musculoskeletal, et cetera. Maybe even there they don't use chatbots and AI fully. And something like mental health, I'd really be wary of something like AI or chatbot being used. So I think it's more generational. It doesn't mean that it shouldn't be there. It should just end with a handoff, especially if it has concerning signs that is being picked up by Watson or whatever engine's being used behind it. So.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Bhargav.
Thank you.